this pistol, and as he turned around to show it to the president, the FBI had their on him.
Wow.
He never forgot that.
Wow.
He did take, which I think may still be in Top Cottage.
Wow.
I've never been there since. Well, I've been only the entrance. So the Colleys lived there until the blizzard of the hurricane in 1938.
Okay.
Took the roof off. Yes.
Of the house. Okay.
And the water came through, and the family patched it up. So it was leak. When I first knew the house, it was leak-proof, but barely.
Yeah.
And the Colleys bought the gatehouse, moved to the gatehouse, and eventually bought it.
They moved it?
Yes, they lived there when I knew her.
Okay. Where did they move the gatehouse?
They moved to the gatehouse.
Oh, moved to the gatehouse.
Moved to the gatehouse. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. And they lived there until she came to live with us. And he died in 1957. She had no money. A neighbor made her gardener very carefully and very shrewdly, because this meant that after a certain amount of months, Betty was on Social Security, minimal Social Security.
Okay. Yeah.
But she received the $44 as income a month as long as she lived. I should say she came to live with us because she had no heat in the
gatehouse.
And so for the 2 winters before we moved up to Shewglie, she lived in our house and had heat there and running water and so forth. And then Barbara, bless her heart, and Betty could be a difficult person. Barbara found her the Payne Foundation in Chatham.
Oh, yeah.
A wonderful place.
Yeah.
And there she lived until she died. But the house continued to be. It was bought by a group of Estonians.
Yeah.
They bought it by the room. 10 Estonians owned 11 rooms.
Okay, but not the entire thing.
No, they owned those rooms separately.
Yeah,
They were all
they did it
separate
by the
owners,
room.
room by
That's
room.
how they apportioned it, according to the rooms that you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was, and they all were from New Jersey, and it was owned. They bought it from Mr. Klemmer, who was their minister, a Lutheran minister, Estonian, and I knew him. And when he died, they bought it from his estate. Wow. 36 acres, 26 acres. And he died, and he sold his estate. Sold his wife. Sold it to the Estonians, and they lived there, using sort of a summer camp. Mm-hmm. And they did put electricity in a rough kind of way. Yeah. And then they died off, and being the kind of people they are, their descendants became quite affluent. Mm-hmm. Most of them lived in New Jersey, I think, and they sold it eventually to. They sold to the man whose name, the couple. They came here
from Rhinebeck.
Yeah,
he's into shoes. Yeah, importing Italian shoes.
Yes, he made a very great deal of money, and he still owns it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I was there maybe 5 years ago now. When
you haven't seen it since it's been restored?
No.
Beautiful!
It's wonderful. Huh. Talk
they
about
did
evil
put
spirits.
on.
That house did have evil spirits.
Sure.
All fled.
They did put on to the north. They put on a small brick addition. Mm-hmm. I think I'm to blame for that, because I pointed out there was not that much of a gap in the brick, where the halls had intended to put a north matching the south addition.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they put a small kitchen addition on, which is too bad. But aside from that, it's inside. It's just beautiful.
It's wonderful. It's
It's
just
a nice side.
Unfortunately,
the mantelpieces had been stolen.
Oh, they were. Okay.
Oh, that was a loss. Beautiful marble that had been brought up, been intended for a house in Yonkers.
Okay.
A Ludlow house in Yonkers.
Yeah.
Part of Yonkers is called Ludlow.
Yeah.
And the woman, the Ludlow heiress for whom the house was built, was intended in the 1850s, died, and the mantelpieces were eventually put in this house, 3 floors downstairs. I have a picture of one of them.
I'm going to get the mail and newspaper.
Oh, good. Thank you, Barbara. And get the paper too, please.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever get the chance to meet Mrs. Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt?
Beg your pardon?
Did you get the chance to meet Eleanor Roosevelt?
I knew her quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were her last luncheon guests before she died.
Oh, no.
She didn't intend it that way.
No, she didn't intend it, but we had a memorable time.
Where was that? Was that a Valkill?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. She left Valkill, a week or two after we were there, and went to New York City and died. But everybody knew her. She was very knowable. No side to her. That's an expression which you may not know. She didn't show one side of her personality to you and another one to somebody else. She was always the same, as my mother used to say. Always the same, and to everybody. And by no means informal. I mean, she expected people to be courteous, and she wasn't lax at all. But she was a remarkable person in every way. I'm quite smitten by her. I'm not. I don't think she's perfect, but she's living with that. That man, I was about to say, which reminds me of a story. I said to Mrs. Roosevelt last time I saw her, I said, "Have you read the new biography of Grace Coolidge?" And she said, "No, but how she could stand that man." And I said, "Mrs. Roosevelt, in my family, those words applied to another president of the United States." I'm long-winded, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's a good story. One other person, I'm not sure if you would have known her, was Alice Delafield, Clarkson, Livingston.
Yes.
What do you remember about her?
Reptilian.
Really? No, she reminded me, she lived in the cottage at Clermont.
Well, later on, yes.
Okay, yeah.
She's a difficult person.
Okay. Yeah.
Very difficult. She was, I really shouldn't say that, and I'll hate myself in the morning for saying it, but because she was always kind to me. But I was one of the few people who walked away from her having a good feeling. She, turn that damn thing on. It's not a very pleasant family.
Okay. Yeah.
It really isn't. They can be pleasant.
Yeah.
But with each other and to the public at large, unless they're running for politics or something, they're not very nice people.
Did they all go to your church?
Well, they didn't go to church anywhere.
Oh, okay.
They had. But by the time I got there, most of it died off.
Yeah.
They're buried there. Honoria came quite faithfully to church at the end. Her sister never came. Janet never came to church.
Yeah.
Reggie was church. I mean, he was. The Rosenquests were descendants. They were descendants of the Clarksons. Miss Clarkson of Holcroft was very loyal.
Yeah.
But she was only here in the summer. She lived in New York in the winter. But Alice was a memorable person. Mrs. Roosevelt remembered her because she threw Mrs. Roosevelt and the children off the place.
That's right.
They
yeah.
Came to
Oak.
You know that story.
Yeah.
I reminded Mrs. Roosevelt, she wiped me off the face of the map.
Now, can you, if you had anything to do with it, can you recount how the Clermont estate came to be preserved after Alice
She sold
passed
it.
away? Yeah, she sold it to New York State.
Well, what else was she going to do with it?
Yeah.
Just had 2 daughters, no grandchildren. Wasn't close to anybody in the family. She had, I think I can say, alienated herself from the local people. Liked her if they knew her, and she liked the local people, although hands off, of course. But she wasn't close to the family. They had not been brought up here, you see.
Yeah.
They had been brought up in New York, and they only bought Holcroft in 1904, I think, maybe a little later. Yeah. And just that, because they had rented places in the summer, and one of the places they rented was McCullough Hall, a place that actually my great-great-grandfather built it in Morristown. They rented that one summer, and Alice came in with her family, and all the Miller portraits were hanging around. Alice took them down and put them behind the door, and of course Mrs. Miller came to call. And it wasn't appreciated. And Nellie Clarkson later, who was Mrs. Livingston's sister, Alice's sister, Nellie said, when I kidded her about it, she said, "Yes, we didn't like Morristown, and Morristown didn't like us."
One last thing I wanted to ask you about was your involvement in the Elmendorph Inn. And
that was fun.
Okay, yeah.
That was fun. Although Mrs. Battistoni went to her grave not speaking to her nephew, who lives in town here, and he loves to talk to me about it, because he had to say, she had sold it. Yeah. She was under contract or something like that. The A&P owned it.
Okay.
Actually, technically, the president of the A&P, I don't know why they did that technicality. It's a legal technicality. Yeah. Not the firm, the president, but of course, basically belonged to the firm. They bought it, and Mrs. They were next door in those days. Yeah. And Mrs. Battistoni of the real estate firm had pretty much sold it to a Greek restaurant. And one evening at a cocktail party, the wife of a Red Hook lawyer, I'm afraid I'm getting to that point where names escape me. They come back at 2 a.m. Anyway, we, over a drink, we said, too bad, but Elmendorph's going to be sold to a restaurant. You know there's going to be an accident there. It's on a curve, and it's going to burn down or something. It's too bad. Yeah. And I thought, let me see what I can do about it. There had been a number of protests and so forth, but none of them went anywhere. So I called up the A&P and said who I was and would I like to talk to the president of the A&P. And this, I think she thought I was an Irish priest, but she said, oh, yes, you come see him. So it was, I'm going to say a day in spring, a terribly rainy day, and I was driving Barbara's Volkswagen Bug down, and the floor was non-existent, and the water from the highway was coming up. I was drenched when I, like a drowned hen, I walked into the AMP offices down near Paterson, New Jersey, called Elmhurst or something, down there. And he was very nice. He died not terribly long after that. No, he left the firm not long after that, which is part of the problem. It was part of the story. And I said, I would like to have him sell us the Elmendorph Inn as a historic site. I had no sign, no idea what I was going to do with it. And he just took me on faith. And he brought in the AMP real estate people who had been offended by these protests that had been mounted outside the store in Red Hook, where it was at that point. And they weren't going to let him deal with me at all. But he brushed them aside. Wonderful. It's just a wonderful story. Yeah. And he sold it to us for $30,000 for, I think I'm right, $30,000 for 30 years. Very low mortgage, very low. And I came home and announced to an ad hoc group
committee,
that including the lawyer's wife, that I'd got the Elmendorph, wet as I was. And I've always been amused. I was wearing clericals, and Mr. name wasn't Powell, but it was something like that. He said to me, he's very British, are you RC, Father? I said, am I RC? I said, I never said yes, but I didn't say no either. And so he thought he had sold it to a Roman priest.
Oh, boy.
He was a good man, just a very fine man. And he didn't want much publicity about the thing because there was trouble in the firm. And subsequent to that, he left the firm suddenly, but meanwhile the deal had been done. Yeah. And I've always wanted to have a plaque put up in the Elmendorph honoring him because he took me on faith. Yeah. And it was a good deal. Yeah.
What was his name? What was his name?
I'm trying to think of it.
Okay.
I'm sure I have it in my journal.
Okay.
Something like Powell.
Okay.
Not an unusual name. He was English. Yeah. Self-made man, obviously. You can tell by accent. Yeah. A very trusting man, and we owe him a lot that he took me on and I had nothing to offer him. Yeah. I didn't even have a board behind me.
Oh, no. So. And you were drenched.
Pardon me?
And you were drenched, too. You were soaking wet the whole time.
Oh, I was a disgrace. No self-respecting president of any AMP would have allowed me in the office, much less a secretary. I remember this, my shoes sloshing as I walked in.
So, thanks so much for talking to me, Reverend Lindsay.
Oh, yeah. It's been a pleasure.